Welcome back to Comic Krackle. I'm your host, Kirby, and you're watching the Krackle Awards. For the last 2 years, I've done something called the comicskirby Awards over on Twitter, which is basically just me talking about the books that I liked from the past year. I figured that now that I have Comic Krackle, I would transfer that into a video, and I did it a little bit different. This year, the Krackle Awards were all fan voted. So if the book that you loved didn't get a Krackle Award this year, it's not on me. You should have voted harder. I don't know. And please don't do a January 6th on Comic Krackle. This is the last thing I have. So for a stipulation in the voting requirements, all of these books had to have at least one issue published within the year 2024. Whether they started in January or the first issue just came out in December, every single one of those titles are fair game. So without further ado, let's give out some awards. So for the first awards, we're going to be focusing on the publishers. The Initiative Award is an award that's given to a publisher that had an initiative within the year 2024 that got you, the comics reader, out to your local comic shop. Whether it's Marvel's Ultimate Initiative, DC's All-In/Absolute Initiative, or Skybound's Energon Universe Initiative, readers came out to their local comic shop, and they came in droves. And the winner of the first Comic Krackle Award is DC Comics with the Absolute/All-In line. Spearheaded by Scott Snyder, this initiative brought people out and had the people talking. I think it was like my 4th video of me recapping all of the announcements and talking about the rumored new series. It didn't matter if it was a pre-established series continuing the creative team or it was brand new books. This initiative gave readers a jumping on point to start buying and reading all of these DC books. For the next Krackle Award, we're going to be looking at the best publisher, and the Krackle goes to DC Comics. So what I wanted to focus on with the Best Publisher Award was not just good initiatives, but the continuous publication of good titles. This varies from Rom V's Detective Comics to the entirety of the Absolute line, as well as Vertigo coming back under the oversight of James Tynion IV. While every publisher is going to have problems or publish books that I'm not too big of a fan of, DC made strides to better not only their own publishing line, but the industry as a whole. If you want to have a really good time, you should listen to some of the interviews that Scott Snyder's done in the wake of All In and just hear the passion in his voice and how excited he is not only for DC, but the medium overall. It's really a breath of fresh air. Next up, we're going to be talking about the commentary community. Don't worry, I'm not included for the voting on this. Something that I wanted to highlight whenever I was posting for the Best Commentary Award is focusing on the people that are bringing nuance to the medium. While I am in the space, I can't listen or watch or read everything by everyone all at once. So I wanted to highlight the people that aren't at the top echelon and commentators in the space that I feel like need to be appreciated on a larger scale. This past year, I found people of wide varieties like Strange Brain Parts or Matt with 4 T's. Both are looking at the medium through an analytical lens, but doing something different than the typical reciting a story back to you. Whether it's highlighting specific creators or looking at the history of the medium, I wanted to focus on the people that are providing some sort of nuance. And the winner for the Best Commentary Award goes to the Black Casebook Podcast. This specific podcast is exactly what I was looking for, and I highly recommend it. As of time of recording, I've only been able to listen to the episode that covers Cold Days, the Batman story by Tom King and Lee Weeks. The host speaks on the nuances, not only from the publication history and the creators behind this book, but also the CIA's influence on art over time. I greatly appreciated just how researched this podcast was, and I can tell that I'm going to be a longtime fan. So if you haven't heard of them already, you should give them a shot. For the next batch of awards, we're going to look at individual series and highlight just some of the best of the best. Starting off with the best limited series, we have The Boy Wonder by Junie Ba. This is a book that I've been enamored with just looking at the stylized pages, but it details what it means to be a Robin, shown through the point of view of Batman's son, Damian Wayne. Going on to best ongoing series, the winner is The Ultimates by Dennis Camp and Juan Frigeri. Spearheading the new Marvel Ultimate Universe, it shows an inverse from the original Ultimate series by Mark Millar and Brian Hitch. Instead of being a response to the Bush administration in 2001, having our heroes track down terrorists, the new Ultimate series puts our heroes on the back foot and have to be the spark for the revolution to overtake the evil powers that be that were put into place by the maker. This is really the book that put Dennis Camp on my radar, and I'm glad that this series is a response in some ways to the original Ultimates. Going on to best original graphic novel, we have We Called Them Giants by Kieran Gillen and Stephanie Hans. This is a book that's set in a post-apocalyptic Earth that's a meditation on the flaws in humanity and making alien contact at the end of the Earth. For best Marvel series, we have The Ultimates by Dennis Camp and Juan Frigeri. Wait a second, didn't that just win an award? Whatever. For best DC series, we have Absolute Batman by Scott Snyder and Nick Dragotta. Alright, I'm gonna be honest. In the video talking about the announcement of the Absolute Universe, I questioned if Scott Snyder would be able to tell a new version of Batman, and I posed the question if he should, considering his long-term runs with the character. And let me say, yeah, I was wrong. Snyder and Dragotta mixed together to tell something that's absolutely wonderful, showing a Batman that's different than ever before. Not only do I think that Scott Snyder is writing at a career best, I think that the collaboration with him and Nick Dragotta is really an inspired choice. Dragotta's pencils really sell me on this Bane-like Batman. It's overtly stylized and really lends to the story that Scott Snyder wants to tell. Now we can move on to the best independent series, and the award goes to The Power Fantasy by Kieran Gillen and Casper Wingard. Now the world is already a dangerous place, but what if we added superpowers to that equation? No, I mean like realistically adding superpowers. That would be terrifying. Added to this, what if only 6 people in the world had superpowers, and what if these powers came into conflict? Now, I've seen a lot of people that reluctantly compare this book to Watchmen, and like I said in the 20th Century Men video, I hate Watchmen comparisons. But this book really differentiates itself and tells a new and unique story. Now we have the Discovery Award. This is an award that's given to a series that at announcement didn't have a lot of hype behind it, but once issues started to come out, it quickly turned into a lot of people's #1 book. And this award goes to The Ultimates by Dennis Camp and Juan Frigeri. Okay, they have to stop winning awards after this. And now for the best first issue, Absolute Batman by Scott Snyder and Nick Dragotta. I do want to say that this was a very narrow margin between a lot of series, namely Ultimate Spider-Man #1, The Ultimates #4, and The New Gods #1, which is my personal favorite, but Scott Snyder and Nick Dragotta took it home. For the last batch of awards, we're going to focus on creators. I wanted to make sure that I highlighted not only the writers and artists, but some of the unsung heroes within the medium. So up first is Best Letterer, and the award goes to, 2 people. So it was a tie, and it's between Clayton Cowles and Hassan Otsmane Allahu. While I've known about Clayton Cowles for a long time, I think my League of Comic Geeks stats probably has him around the 700s or so. I think the first time that I came into contact with Hassan's work was in Above Snakes, which he was an absolute standout. Next up, we have Best Inker, which goes to Danny Mickey. Danny is an inker that I think is very malleable, but enhances the pencilers that he's inking on. He's also pretty high in my League of Comic Geeks as well. And now we'll go on to Best Colorist. And this award goes to Jordi Belair. I feel like colorists are often overlooked, but they're so important to the visual depiction of the medium. Also, a lot of the time, they're only enhancing both the pencils and the script to sell that narrative beyond the page. Jordi Belair has done a phenomenal job through coloring in the past year, so I'm glad that they got the award. Now we have Best Artist. Ooh, looks like we got 2 again. So the award goes to Nick Dragotta and Hayden Sherman. Now I talked about Nick's work previously, so I'm not going to overemphasize that, but I want to talk about Hayden Sherman's work. Their rendering of pencils really blew me away whenever I was first introduced to Above Snakes, and I knew that whichever book that they were assigned to, they were going to knock it out of the park. And I'm so glad that that proved true with Absolute Wonder Woman. Not only is the series done right by Kelly Thompson telling a good story with an alternate take on Wonder Woman, but Hayden Sherman's pencils make this book a must buy. There's so many instances of blink and you'll miss it, but Sherman is really swinging for the fences on this book and really making a name for themselves. And now we have the Best Writer Award, and this goes to Dennis Camp. Well, it looks like everybody that voted on these awards really likes Dennis Camp, and I'm glad that he's getting it because I really love 20th Century Men, and I'm going to be there for any series that he does going forward, specifically Absolute Martian Manhunter and his new Image Comics series. For the last 2 awards, we have the Rising Stars for both writing and art. I wanted these 2 awards to focus on creators that really came out of nowhere, at least for the people that voted. Maybe they weren't previously aware of the work that these creators did, but they feel like the work done in 2024 really solidified them for the future. So for Rising Star Artist, we have Hayden Sherman. Well, I'm really glad that I already talked about how much I love their work. And lastly, for Rising Star Writer, we have... It's Dennis Camp again. Hey, I support it. And no, this whole award show was not just to give Dennis Camp his flowers and make him come onto the channel. But Dennis, if you're interested... That's going to be enough out of me. Thank you for watching the Krackle Awards. If you like this, you might like the playlist that's over to the right. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget, go read some comics. Or else.